Cadillacs and Dinosaurs.
A damn good show, but CBS, which had the show for just under 6 months, never really gave it a chance.
I'm here to help.
At first, the very concept sounds like something created straight out of the lab of a really bad marketing firm trying to combine dinosaur nuts and their love of hot rods.
In fact, the show was adopted from the 1980s indie comic series Xenozoic Tales, which focuses on a future in which dinosaurs came to retake the Earth after mankind wasted its chances at becoming the dominant species by causing what is known in the comics as the Great Cataclysm.
The Great Cataclysm can pretty much be summed up like this. You know all the pollution in the air from automobiles and factories, the nuclear bombs we've developed and detonated, the Terminator-style robots we've come to be familiar with, biogenic weapons, massive oil spills. How about the massive annihilation of various species on a global scale?
Well, it's all come back to bite us in the ass.
And that's where Xenozoic picks up, as indicated by the self-explained timeline on the inside cover of issue number 1. A series entirely devoted to a hypothetical cause and effect surrounding the globe, but for the most part focuses on the adventures of Cadillac Jack Tenrec and Hannah Dundee. In the comics, the universe does open up to focus on random people, like a postman or a dog protecting a herd of sheep from dinosaurs, which was really a brilliant idea. It gave the reader a chance to step outside the normal storyline and venture off elsewhere into this insane world created, written, and drawn by Mark Schultz. CBS took this great idea for the most part, and with the help of Canadian cartoon production company Nelvana Limited, developed it into a classic TV show that for no reason should have flopped. However, it did.
One reason could have been because they changed the name of the comics. The name! Pretty late in the game. Fans of the series would have been confused by this, and in all likelihood it was a marketing decision, claiming that Xenozoic Tales would be too hard for the average 6-year-old to contemplate, and that Cadillacs and Dinosaurs would pull in viewers. That should be enough to successfully defend this show's right to existence. But there's more.
CBS, being as insightful and caring as they were at the time, booked the cartoon on last in its fall 1993-1994 lineup, so it aired at 11:30, dead last in its airtime for a Saturday morning cartoon. It was after an hour of Garfield and Friends, after an hour of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then someone tuning in for this great show had to sit through a crappy reboot of Dennis the Menace before finally getting into Cadillacs and Dinosaurs.
Hey, bonehead, what you got against Cadillacs?
Now, aside from all that, why is this a bad time slot? Well, if you're a major network, okay, and you happen to land something big, say, I don't know, the Olympic Games, whatever was on at 11:30 would most likely get bumped for Olympic coverage, even if it was an all-new episode of Son of a Bitch.
That year, CBS got the Winter Olympics, so Cadillacs and Dinosaurs was bumped during half the show's first season for pre-Olympic coverage.
That's right. Half of the new episodes were bumped for guys lacing up their skates.
The last deal we made with you left us with the short end of the stick.
The final reason the show failed wasn't so much the all-seeing eyes broadcasting blunder, though. No. It was who they gave the toy contract to that screwed the dino this time. Tyco. Probably most famous for their RC cars, Tyco landed one of its first action figure gigs with this brand new show with unlimited potential.
Unfortunately for Tyco, they really didn't know how to make action figures, which led to the release being delayed until after the series was already canceled. That's why if you go on eBay right now, you'll find about 200,000 figures with clearance stickers on them. Can you imagine being the poor schmuck at Toys R Us that opens up a box of these with a note attached to it saying,
"Dear Toy Store owner, thank you very much for your purchase of Cadillacs and Dinosaurs action figures. We here at Psycho CBS value your business. You now have exclusive rights to sell such classic characters as Cadillac Jack, Hermes, the lovable Allosaurus, Cadillac Jack's actual Cadillac, endorsed by General Motors, Random Dinosaurs, Anna, and more. However, it is with a heavy heart that we announce that Cadillacs and Dinosaurs Season 2 has been cancelled. Included with your shipment is a sheet of pre-priced clearance stickers. Thanks for your order, and good luck selling this shit that no one will even remember now."
Even people that remember the show have their memories going fuzzy thanks to the release of Jurassic Park that previous summer. So a lot of people tied this cartoon into that series. It's forcing, believing, assuring people that they talked to on the street that there was and is a Jurassic Park cartoon. In fact, today I even have a friend that swears by it. Dustin, dude, this is it.
I suppose I understand where someone would think such a thing, as memories become tangled over time. Not to mention the show's lead character, Jack Tenrak, looks a little like a bulked up Ian Malcolm. But if you do remember the show, you would know instantly why you'd have to be a moron to think such a thing. For one, the dinosaurs aren't even called dinosaurs. They're called slithers.
That's 2 slithers we've seen acting strangely.
And here come the rest of them!
It doesn't stop there either. Tyrannosaurus is now called a civet. Allosauruses are called cutters. Now, there is a reason for the name change, and it makes sense given the backstory of the show. Something the typical fan from that era would have only obtained from reading the original stories. See, in the comics, you find out that humanity had built these vast underground cities where they lived for roughly 600 years to shield themselves from the fallout of years of pollution and natural disasters. But when they re-emerged from these vaults, they woke to an Earth that had somehow been reclaimed by various previously extinct life forms, including but not limited to the dinosaurs. That bit of information sure is helpful to the casual Saturday morning cartoon watcher, who flips on their TV and finds that their favorite dinosaur is now being called a civet.
Not to mention the Allosaur, Hermes, is called a cutter in the show, and yet on the Tycho toy, he's a Deinonychus?
Granted, it does make sense to the people in the vaults that they would lose certain information over time. But the name of dinosaurs? Really? They seem to know what a wrench is called. They have tanks and helicopters, and hell, they even know how to manufacture geothermic power. That's some pretty goddamn advanced stuff. Although to be fair, in the comics we find out that Jack's garage, which contains the means for the geothermic power, actually comes from the stored vaults located by the moles who live in the city and the sea. But really, come on.
They couldn't bring Rexy back?
You know what did this to us? It was a giant civet.
A ship.
A civet.
That includes now naming a Triceratops after a former semi-truck,
I'd hate to be in the path of those Macs. Nothing can stop them.
and really going out of their way to rename the Stegosaurus.
Wahoon chucks!
Get inside and hold on.
There's even a mosasaur that's now called a thresher, but you have to forgive them for forgetting that name at least. After all, it's not every day New Yorkers saw whales, and now they're dealing with mosasaurs? That can't be fun.
The comic and the show differ slightly, but for the most part stay true to our heroes. But there are some big differences for other characters throughout the series. For example, in Xenozoic Tales,
Hannah Dundee is introduced in the first story, Archipelago Stone, explaining the horrific fear the citizens of the city and the sea have for the Wahoons, another group of people from another tribe in this vast new world. Boats are slowly coming in and everyone starts to panic. There's even an assassination attempt on what turns out to be ambassador and diplomat and scientist Hannah Dundee, that thankfully Jack and Hermes, that's his pet cutter / Allosaurus, foil by biting a guy's head off and tossing him out of a skyscraper. Understandably, this was way too violent for CBS to straight up copy and put into a cartoon, so instead they had Hannah get ambushed on a jungle road. Not as dramatic. So the cartoon starts off with what will be one of our two main characters, Hannah Dundee, scientist and politician, as she'll tell you several times throughout the series, on her way to the city and the sea to open a line of communication between them and her home city of Wahoon, which, for the record, are the ruins of New York City and what would seem to be Washington, D.C.
why Washington? Well, there are several clues dropped throughout the TV show and the comics, but one, for example, is Hannah says that her city is made of white marble. Now, I wonder what could be made of white marble.
Much like Homeland Security and the FBI and the CIA before her, Hannah values information above all else. She says in the comics that she was in the city and the sea specifically to gain access to the library. She also says that her tribe is one of scholars, descended directly from the giant lords of the ancient world, which sounds sort of like congressmen and politicians to me. Finally, Hannah knows what a fascist is, but Jack doesn't. But Hannah does. We can only assume it's some sort of Wahoon slang that's lived on for over 400 years via word of mouth, and more than likely worked its way up to curse word status in the Xenozoic era. Even Jack references the geography early on.
In Wahoon, all the old bloods have died off.
Well, maybe in Wahoon, but there's a few of us left up here, and we still follow the Machinato Vitae.
Granted, this is only speculation, but you can't blame me for trying. After all, the show has a constant struggle with geography. Like here, Jack is showing us where he tracked a Shivet that was on the rampage, a story well adapted from the comics. But when he shows us where he tracked the dinosaur, he shows us he went from point A to point B. You tracked it into the ocean?
What the hell, Jack? Did your caddy do an Inspector Gadget and change into a speedboat while you were chasing down this flying Allosaurus? Honestly, get it together, man.
How about this? Here, one of our characters gets his hand on a satellite left in orbit by the ancients and aims it at the center of Africa. Where were we? Oh yeah. Hannah and her fellow ambassadors are attacked by Hammer Terhune, one of our key antagonists throughout the short-lived series, in the jungle and runs towards the city, which she obviously can't reach by land since it's called the City in the Sea. But best of luck to her, you know? Wait just one goddamn second. New York Public Library?
Wait a second, you're telling me that the proper name for dinosaurs cannot be found throughout this entire civilization, and yet you're looking right at a library. I mean, in the comics, the library is like 5 stories underground in a decompressed room, and if you remove a book, it instantly crumbles. So, at least in that sense, applying those rules, this makes sense that you would have to rename dinosaurs. But, you know, honestly, it's right there. Just go find a paleontology book and figure it out. You know? And the worst part is, right, in the very next episode, Hannah gives Jack a book, but not before saying,
I've been to the library.
Shortly after Jack meets Hannah, only after Hannah shoots her tires out, they hook up and he gives her a ride, which leads to one of the dumbest questions throughout this series.
What's this thing?
A radio.
A radio? You know, we're trying to learn to broadcast again in Wahoon.
wait, what? You know what broadcasting is, but you have no idea what a radio looks like. Did I mention there's some inconsistencies throughout this series?
So Jack turns on the radio to show her what broadcasting sounds like, I guess, only to hear the governor of the City in the Sea, which is the mayor, I suppose now, bad-mouthing Jack and his mechanic friends.
They are the real dinosaurs. By telling us we can't build where we want to and plant where we want to. They are slowing progress. They are stopping development.
How unrealistic is that, though? I mean, the series just started, and we're supposed to believe that the leader of this city is really concerned about these people. That's like if the mayor of New York went on national TV and said, "You know that panhandler and his friends off the Candy Expressway? They're dead, you hear me? Dead!"
Well, that was mature.
They are taking food out of the mouths of your children.
Wahoon.
Man, that chick's got it out for him.
That's fact, not opinion.
Well, when you get a look in his garage, maybe I can see where that's a possibility. I mean, in a post-apocalyptic wasteland ruled by dinosaurs, what man needs a garage the size of a small suburb? Just what other resources is he wasting away in there?
Apparently a small arsenal of curse words as well. I'm not sure what a Wahoon means, but Jack uses it at every opportunity. After all, it is a kid's show.
Wahoon. 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 It's back. Wahoon. 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 What the devil is that?
I don't know, Jack. What is that?
What exactly does this strange word mean? It kind of sounds like Hannah's hometown of Wahoon. Maybe everyone there's a complete asshole? One can only speculate.
So now that Jack and Hannah are together, they work to get a radio transmitter off a rampaging T-Rex
Or Shivet.
that's terrorizing the town. At the end of the episode, Jack crushes the box only to have it become fixed moments later when he presents it to the governor as evidence, only to have her crush it again.
Yep. There are some inconsistencies.
Mustafa Cairo's Pittsburgh Pirates baseball cap to previously thought dead characters having a long run on the show, most notably Hammer Terhune.
My career's just getting started, Cadillac.
Hammer is a gun for hire. He's one of, if not the main antagonist throughout the series. Yet in the comic, he only lasted for a total of 3 pages before being killed off. Granted, the Terhune brothers in the comics are meant to be portrayed as a joke. They're the embodiment of greed that led up to the Great Cataclysm, and that's why they've all been killed off somehow by the means of one Cadillac Jack. Yet in the TV show, these guys never get what's coming to them, which is sort of disappointing but understandable for a kids' TV show. Finally, there are the Grith, one of the most underused, undeveloped character species throughout this entire series. We are led to believe that there is an intelligent race that evolved long before man. Hobb is the leader of the Grith and the assigned Grith ambassador of sorts to Jack Tenrick. On the show, they communicate via telepathically, yet in the comics, they communicate via Scrabble pieces in order to ensure that they are assisting each other to avoid yet another Great Cataclysm, or the Second Cataclysm, which everyone should avoid.
Hannah, try to blast those obstacles out of our path, but be careful not to hit any of the living creatures.
Just drive!
The Grith had so much potential. They were the bridge between dinosaurs and mankind, as Jack says. They had somewhat of an alien quality to them, and they were very mysterious and feared by modern man in the series. Granted, they may be a little too trusting and nearly die off when Jack's old friend stole their special rock, but still, they had heart. The sort of heart that is hard to let stop beating, especially when so much character is there.
For a show that only lasted 1 season, you really have to admire its sense of purpose on screen. After all, every episode dealt with some sort of moral or ethical dilemma that Jack and company had to solve in this new land. You really have to admire its sense of purpose.
Jack was the moral glue that held this show together with his Machinato Vihai code of honor, which for some reason in the cartoon it includes not killing a dinosaur no matter what. But in the comics, they pump him full of lead, regardless of the character.
Probably yet another thing CBS tried to change in adapting it.
The show is a testament to what could have been. If Captain Planet was a human working with a race of intelligent dinosaur offspring to prevent a global catastrophe while caring for modern man and dinosaurs alike, this would have been that show. If G.I. Joe woke up 600 years in the future and had no country and was left to defend against right and wrong in a world full of prehistoric creations, this would be that show. It was original for the time, and its ideals still apply to our way of life today. One would only hope that we get the opportunity in the near future to explore more of the Xenozoic era, be it with comics, cartoons, or a live-action cast, sometime soon.
Because ethics die hard. And so do dinosaurs.
Well, I learned one thing. Cadillacs and dinosaurs don't mix.